Okay, I think we can start now. I think we have already about 200 people and a lot of cameras on, and I think would be good to start going. Good. So hi everyone, my name is Aya Abu Bakr. I'm one of the second year residents in internal medicine here at Cornell and one of the co-chairs of the Minority House Staff Committee, along with Lindsay Clark, who's here, and two others that will be joining us later in the internal medicine breakout session. I am a native New Yorker. I was born actually at Cornell and raised in Queens. I think the physician who delivered me may be somewhere in the Zoom chat, actually, Dr. Hogum, who will be speaking to the OBGYN group later. And I have sort of stayed in New York City for my training. The MHC, or Minority House Staff Committee, which you guys can maybe read about online as well, was created about 25 years ago, I think now, Dr. Morales, with the intent of increasing the representation of minority physicians, kind of like yourselves at Cornell, recognizing the importance of having physicians that look like our patient populations, knowing that enhances medical care outcomes for our patients, and we really all learn from each other in a diverse atmosphere. And I think it really has taken off to really encompass this vast mentoring cascade. We have pipeline programs from the high school and undergraduate college level to, of course, close mentoring with the medical students, including programs like Make Your Match Today, as well as pairing us residents with faculty members in many fields who can allow for our professional development. I'm so excited that so many of you guys can join us today. I know that there is Zoom fatigue, and that it is a beautiful Saturday, but as much as we obviously wish we could have done this in person like it usually is done each year, we're so glad to have so many of you guys join us in this space, and we're excited to hear from you in the individual sessions soon. The Make Your Match event is, it usually is done in person with the idea of helping guide you guys as much as we can in one session about the residency application process, what it's like to interview and choose a program. And we'll kind of go into that more later, but I will pass the baton on to Lindsay because I could honestly talk forever, but we have a lot of people to hear from today. All right, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Clark. I'm a second year internal medicine resident as well, and one of the MHC co-chairs along with Aya, as well as two others, Fabian Vargas and Elizabeth Sanchez, who will be joining us for the internal medicine breakout session later. But I grew up in New Jersey. I did my medical training at George Washington University, and being a part of the Minority House Committee this year, Aya mentioned a lot of the mentorship opportunities that we have. But one other thing that we do is a lot of the recruitment events like this event, and one of my favorite events of the year. At the culmination of the interview season, we do a diversity open house second look event, and it's really great to again have that opportunity to hear more about the programs from the program directors and to be able to engage with some of the residents then as well. So we, again, so happy that so many of you guys were able to turn out today, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Morales to give some more information about some of the things we have here.
Good morning, everyone. We are so excited to see all of you. I am the Vice Chair for Diversity in the Department of Medicine and the Director of our Diversity Center of Excellence, which is the education core of our Cornell Center for Health Equity. And we realized this week that this is the 20th anniversary of Make Your Match, which I didn't even remember because of my delirium, but we started Make Your Match in the Department of Medicine, but then a few years ago, we decided that we would invite all the residency programs at NYP Cornell to participate, and it's been a wonderful communal success. And we have many program directors and other leadership on this call now, and the structure of today is going to include a panel discussion with residency program leadership, focused on what do programs, what do residencies look for. And we'll do some Q&A as much as we can before 1 o'clock during that time. And then at 1 o'clock, there'll be breakout rooms to your areas of interest. And that we did it that way so that there could be a little bit more of a personal touch. So you'll actually be able to introduce yourselves and chat with faculty and house staff from the different residency programs. But we are really delighted that so many people from all across the country and all across the world are participating in this Zoom. That's the one advantage of having to have it not virtual. Before we move on to our next speaker, I did want to give a special thanks to Daisy Torres-Valles and Lawrence Onyakenwe, who did a wonderful job in coordinating this. Some of you have met them via email. They are the staff of our Diversity Center of Excellence, and they've been amazing and are also technologically genius, thank God. And you could see Lawrence there with on his graduation day. He just graduated from Cornell last spring and is pre-med. So if you get to chat with him, you can give him advice, as all of you brilliant medical students. I do want to mention just a moment about the Diversity Center of Excellence, which you can look online for. There's actually a short video which can give you more information. But the bottom line is that it is a collaboration of all the many diversity activities of our medical center. And as was mentioned, has programs for pre-medical students, actually even going down to middle school, high school, college, as well as programs to support and expand for medical students, for residents. We have a health equity fellowship, and we have mentoring programs and faculty development programs for faculty, all with a bent towards community engagement. And the Cornell Center for Health Equity is focused on research, education, and advocacy for underserved communities and health equity around the country and around the world. So I welcome you to take a look at the websites, but in the interest of time, I actually won't show the slides on that because I know that we want to talk. Next, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Joy Howell, who will tell you a little bit about herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joy Howell. I am an associate professor of clinical pediatrics here at Weill Cornell. I serve as vice chair for diversity within the Department of Pediatrics and most recently assistant dean of diversity and student life. And it's my distinct pleasure to be here and to help welcome you to this year's Make Your Match event. Although to my knowledge, this is the first time in the 20 years since Make Your Match has been in existence that we're doing this virtually, we are very, very excited to see all of you here and to spend a couple of hours on this lovely Saturday just sharing space with you all. Once upon a time, I used to see myself as closer to you all as a young person than I did to those who were training me, my elders, so to speak. But after 22 years being at this institution, I can no longer claim to be a young one. You may ask, why am I sharing this information with you? Even though I am a clinician educator and an educational enthusiast, so to speak, and usually in that relationship, I'm on the delivering side of the dynamic. There are times where, as an educator, I am learning from my trainees. And one event that happened earlier this spring was a moment where one of our graduating medical students made a statement that was deep and loud and profound and resonated with me then and still resonates with me. Francesca Voza, who was a member of the class, the Weill Cornell Medicine class of 2020, said, "There's no better time to be a doctor." And I wholeheartedly agree. People go into medicine for myriad reasons. And I suspect that some of you are coming into medicine so that you can turn around and serve the populations and the communities from whence you come. But irrespective of what brought you to this place, it's important for you to know that there are long-standing yet urgent disparities that we need to address. And the American population needs you. The healthcare workforce needs you. We need you. And most importantly, we welcome you to this space. And so with that, I hope that you have a wonderful afternoon, that this is informative for you. Certainly when you get to the breakout sessions, you'll have the opportunity to ask us questions that on topics that may have been raised during the panel. We invite you to pick our brains, so to speak. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, my apologies. Had a temporary ischemic attack. Let me now transition to Dr. Lenny Golightly. Dr. Lenny Golightly is a longstanding member of the Department of Medicine and has served for several years as Associate Dean of Diversity and Inclusion. Dr. Golightly.
Thank you so much. And I apologize in advance because I have blinky lights here. If I don't move in certain ways in different parts of the room, the lights go off. But whether the lights seem off in the room or not, they're on in this virtual space. And I hope you feel the warmth of our programs and that you can recognize how much we care for you. So I'll start out before I begin giving you reasons I'm here to say that this is a journey. Some of you may decide not to join us. I hope you will. But to remember the faces that you see here and to feel free to call us up. We're small in number everywhere. And if you don't come here now, maybe you'll come here later. And in fact, I am alum of the medical college. I went away and came back. I'm a recidivist. I have been in charge of our infectious disease fellowship program at one point. And I got into global health here and I do research in global health. And I am also in diversity. And I feel that this place has permitted me to do those things. I've changed from basic to clinical. And as Joy Howell was just saying, I'm here at a critical time and proud to be here. And I think that you're going to hear a lot about the things that we have to offer, a lot about the teams, a lot about the way we care and look after each other. 20 years of welcoming people into this space, 20 years of having dinners at the end of the year, which I can say, I have I'm watching Dr. Goody's child with her. I had a little one too, who's big now, but grew up in this space and was nurtured by people here. And I was nurtured. And let's be honest, as we sit on the edge of elections and people arguing back and forth, we have issues here too. But I think you'd find it's a place where if you don't feel things are quite right, you can talk to people. If you feel lonely and out there, you can talk to people. If you have things to celebrate, you can talk to people, and we're here for you. And so I hope that that comes across today. There's a saying we've been talking about here about from Martin Luther King about the arc of justice is long, but we're joining that arc. I hope you'll join us here, but if not, you'll always be a part of our community. So with that, I will hand it back to Dr. Morales, I believe.
Thank you. I'm actually going to hand it back to Aya and Lindsay to introduce our panel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for those wonderful words. So next up, we're going to be moving towards our panel where we have several of our program directors from various specialties. And we'll discuss kind of what residencies look for, but it will be a fluid discussion about what do you as applicants look for and how can you find that in a residency program. So part of the panel will be Dr. Morales, who you all just met and is the Vice Chair of Diversity here in our Department of Medicine. We have Dr. Tirseep Asfa, the program director for OBGYN and specialist in urogynecology. We also have with us Dr. Jimmy Avari, who is the interim program director for the psychiatry program. We have Dr. Jennifer DePace, the program director for the pediatric residency program. We have Dr. Manish Garg, who's the program director for emergency medicine. We have Dr. Kirana Goody, our lovely program director in internal medicine. Dr. Joy Howell, who you met, the program director of the Pediatric Critical Care Fellowship. And last but not least, Dr. Matthew Robbins, the program director for the neurology program. Okay, so we can start. I'm not sure, maybe Daisy, are we soliciting questions from the applicants?
I'm going to actually start us off, actually. I
Great.
think the first thing that, and I think the thing that probably the students want to know the most is, what do you look for in a future resident? Program directors and program leadership, because I think we all have a slightly different spin on that. And I'm gonna ask Dr. Asfa to lead off on that.
Hello, welcome to everyone. That's a really good question. I'm sure something that everyone wants to know, but I think probably the most important thing to say is that there's not one specific thing. I know we say this every year. It's not just the grades. It's not just the letters. It's really a holistic approach to everything that is on your application. Yes, absolutely, those things matter. Your grades and your board scores and everything else still matters. But I think a lot of times, especially when we have record number of applications coming in, which is a lot to go through, we're looking for that sort of hidden gem. I mean, I wish I could put a picture of my residency program class right now, and I could tell you something specific that I saw in each person when I was going through the applications that I just loved and just said, I want to have this person in my program. It could be something that it could be something that you wrote on your personal statement. And, if we have that connection, I just see some humanistic aspect of you. And it's not just really me, actually, I keep saying but it's really a panel of people that review your application. That's what we're looking for. Someone that doesn't, I think in OBGYN, just every other personal statement talks about that first delivery and it was great and I was hooked onto OBGYN. Well, everyone's going to write about that. We want to see something specific about you that you can talk about, if you could draw into your personal experience, where we came from, challenges that you had, how you overcame, just something humanistic about you. And of course, we look at all your letters and just see, what all other people who work with you have to say. But again, we try to look at a holistic approach to find something special, something particular about you. And everyone's special, but every program is different. So we're trying to find something that would work well with the group that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Asfa. I think that, part of what you're pointing at is that there are some across the board factors. And then there are, of course, special things related to our individual fields. And we may, there may be special things that we want to point out about that. I'm going to ask I know Dr. Vari, you're newly in this role, but I know you've been involved in residency training. What are you most interested when you meet applicants?
Yeah, thank you. In addition to the application, I think we look for varied interests, right? We look for people that have interests in all different things, not just psychiatry and not just medicine. That's important to our program. And we look for good colleagues. We look for people that we are going to enjoy working with, people that we can imagine being attendings in our department later on and working on projects together. Another thing that is particularly important to us is how our residents feel about our applicants. Our residents spend a lot of time with our applicants, and they're able to really distill the information that we need in a way that is particularly meaningful to us to make sure that goodness of fit that we look for in psychiatry is there.
Thanks. very much. How about Dr. DePace? What do you look for the doctors of your little ones?
Yeah, thanks. I think, you know, one of the things that's been brought up is about interests and passions. And I want to encourage all of you to really think about what that is. What is it that you bring to the table, or what is it that really brought you to this field? Because you've heard already this morning that we have lots of resources here. We have wonderful people, faculty, trainees, students, and what that allows us to do as program directors, and I think I speak for all of the program directors on this meeting, we have connections to really wonderful resources in a diverse, really diverse range of activities. And so what we love to do is connect you to the right place, the right people, so that we can get you on your next step, the path in your career development. That's what I love about being a program director. It's an honor and a privilege to do this job. And when I can make those connections and help you on your way, it's really fulfilling, hopefully for both of us. And so I look for that in an application. If you've really identified what that is, and it's not a firm commitment, you're not signing a contract, but I look for those things that I can help to develop.
Thanks very much. Dr. Garg, do you want to talk about a little bit about your program and what you are interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. Susanna, can we just like pause for a second and just like take a look at, I've just actually been going through the faces of like all of our really wonderful attendees here. It like makes my heart feel full. It's just so wonderful to see all of these like beautiful faces. It makes me very excited about our different fields, and I know I can speak for
medicine.
Yeah, so it's
us.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us today. You know, I would tell you that emergency medicine, to me, is at the intersection of health and humanity. And so I think really as kind of the gatekeeper to a hospital, we really, you know, it's really important that you understand that when you're coming to our field, it's a window into the community. And so we need to have physicians who are ready to be able to tackle all of the challenges. And we want to try to do that in a family environment. And I would advise all of you out there, try to find who you think is going to be a really good support network for you as a new professional family. And so for us, you know, it's very important to celebrate diversity. That's why I'm so excited about today. We need to have folks that are going to advocate for health equity, to address these disparities that have been more exacerbated in the last year. We need to find smart, caring, high energy people, you know, people who really care about the community, people who are versatile, who want to be smart, be technically proficient, and understand the art of medicine. And so consequently, just like my colleagues are saying, I think, you know, folks that have we look for holistic aspects to the application. I certainly look for people who've done service to the community. I've looked for people who are leaders, because I think one of the things that we want is, at least in our field and in all fields, you are going to be the general of a large working force in your hospital. And we need to be able to train you and prepare you with executive skills. So, you know, bring your great ideas, bring your really great effort and your culture. And I think as you put your personal statements together, as you talk on your interviews, you want to make sure you're highlighting the very best ways that you may be able to contribute to that new family that you really like to join.
Thank you very much. Next up is our beloved Dr. Goody in internal medicine. Kierna, what do you look for in an applicant?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to see you all here, and I'm so happy to be here with a lot of my colleagues, all the program directors from the different training programs here at our institution. I think one of the things that you'll see among us is this camaraderie that exists even on levels that are not, you know, necessarily within our own training programs. And it's one of the best parts about working at our institution, for sure. I can tell you that I definitely have speed dialed a few of the people on this call in moments of emergencies, and they've been very helpful to me. So I guess I'd start by first saying that one of the things I look for are residents who will text you while you're on a Zoom to tell you that you need to change your, and I'm going to tell this for all the other program directors, you should change your name on your Zoom to include the program that you are the director of, so that everybody can find that. And that's what they were doing while I was listening to you all speak. Dr. Goody, put it that it says internal medicine so they can find you. So I look for people who are problem solvers and who are able to help us advance the cause as we're going forward. But mostly I would agree with everybody who is talking about that when we look at trainees and we look at applicants for the training program, we look in this way to say, who would this person be when they joined our training program? Who would they be in our community? And how would they help us all to grow and be better? And I think that's one of the things that is something that people really don't necessarily understand, is that when you're looking at applicants, you're looking at picking not just 1 or 2 people, but for us, 45 people who are going to join a community, and how all of those people will contribute to our sense of what our mission is in caring for patients. And so I think it's really important when you're putting your application together, keep in mind, we still haven't seen any of those. So if there's something you hear right now in this, that's why we do this meeting now. If there's something you hear that you want to go and update your application, you can go ahead and do that, because we haven't seen anything yet. When you are thinking about your application, you should be thinking about how does all of this stuff that I put together tell the people who are going to read my application what I'm going to do, the amazing things I'm going to do when I am at their institution. And I think that's what we try to figure out as we're reading your applications, from what your personal statement says you want to do and what it says you've accomplished, and from what the letter writers say about you, to try and get a sense of who you are, so that we can know what you'll bring to our communities.
Thanks a lot. Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Howell to talk a little bit about what you look for in applicants.
So I would echo the comments and sentiments of all of my colleagues who've spoken. And I would just add by saying, you know, some people come to medicine and they're brilliant. They can put their finger to the wind and deduce what's going on and deliver excellent care, and apply the knowledge that they've acquired with little effort. The rest of us have to work hard. And in addition to all that my colleagues have said, a good work ethic and willingness to work hard. I can not underestimate or underscore enough how much a good attitude and a willingness to apply yourself as much as you need to, so that the quality of care that you're delivering to your patients is outstanding.
Thank you. So before I ask Dr. Robbins to reflect on what he's going to say, I want to tell everybody that it's Dr. Robbins' birthday. So happy birthday, Matt. Woo-hoo! And we appreciate your being here on your birthday. But I know this is your birthday present. So tell us, as our neurology program director, what you look for.
Well, thank you. And I could think of no better place, real or virtual, because some of the people on this meeting are people I really admire so much. And I can say, sort of as a relative Cornell newcomer, being extremely immersed in all things Cornell and New York Presbyterian over the past year and a half, I've been just so blown away by the warm and welcoming and inclusive nature of this institution. And what I would say is, you know, none of us, and I think this is pretty universal, want to recruit sort of a homogeneous class of PGY1s into our programs. We don't want a class of X many people who are going to be basic science researchers. We don't want to, we want to really promote a diverse class of people from backgrounds and interests, so we can really appreciate how we are all elevated by how different we are. And I think that's a clear priority for all of us. And another thing to sort of make in a more concrete analogy from things that so many of my other fellow PDs have said, when we see that narrative and that sort of composition of all of your accomplishments and interests and desires on your application, I want to translate that into when it's 4 a.m. and my resident is in the ER working with Dr. Garg's resident and seeing a patient at their most vulnerable and wanting to know if they should call Dr. Goody's fellow or admit to one of her teams, or to see where this patient will be best in their moment of vulnerability and how you're going to communicate that to a family who's really sort of on the precipice. I think we really look to your application to see, is this the person I want in that position? And I think who is going to be able to connect with these families that come from anywhere around New York or the world of any different walk of life, and how that's going to work the best. And we really use that type of analogy in our program, and so many of my fellow program directors do, to really see, are you the right person for us? And I think so many of you are the right people for us, but we really sort of try to take your story and put it into different moments that we know are people, including our colleagues, that are most vulnerable, and to see where that will work the best.
Thanks very much, and happy birthday. And if you look on the chat, many people have been wishing you happy birthday. I did want to reflect a minute for what I look for in applicants as well. And I didn't really get a chance to tell you that much about my background. I'm also a native New Yorker. I grew up in the Bronx. If there are any Bronx people on the call, shout out. And I live in Harlem now. And I was a Columbia student and resident before, medical student and resident and faculty member before I came to Cornell 22 years ago. And the reason I've stayed here is because of the warmth that was just alluded to. It's a very odd phenomenon, I think, for a very big hospital in a very big city to have a small feel, that sense of warmth. And it was startling to me when I came to Cornell. That's why I've stayed, and that's why I've worked hard to with my colleagues to build communities here. We have, of course, as a house officer at Cornell, you would have your own residency community, but there are also all these other communities which we've been constructing and nourishing. And it's a profound experience. I think that we have all been through, and I'm sure many of you from all around the country are maybe living through this now. We're in a profoundly difficult, painful, tragic, and yet often inspiring time. It's sort of the best of times and the worst of times. Certainly one of the things that we experienced as a Cornell family was how we all came together during our peak in New York City, where every single bed in our hospital was a coronavirus patient, and where we had hundreds and hundreds of intubated people, and where the pediatricians became critical care internists, and the rehab doctors did, and the psychiatrists did, and everyone was a COVID doctor. And it was just a profound, traumatic and yet inspiring experience. So, for all of you all around the country, I think that my advice for you in turn, what you should look for is, where is going to be my adopted family? Because residency is like no other experience. Medical school is intense, but for me, residency was way more intense. And that is what forged the friendships that I still have from my residency. We still get together many years later, et cetera. And annoyingly for the spouses, talk about, the experience like in 1986. It's kind of pathetic, but it is what it is. But I really feel like those are some of the things that you should look for. What I look for in applicants is their devotion to patient. Number one, when, what they feel about patients. I want that 4 a.m. resident because I think that otherwise it's a very long road. If you don't have that fire in your belly to take care of patients, like they were your family, or your, your best friend's family, then I'm less into you as an applicant. I think that, of course, we want people with many different interests, with many different talents, but in the end, a resident, most of what you're doing as a resident is taking care of patients. And one of the things that I've experienced, because I've been here so long, is having our residents taking care of my family, and the profound gift that that has been for me when I went through great sorrow, was having my residents take care of family members. So I just really think that that is the most important thing. We are very interested in our institution in having physicians that represent the city and the world. And our dean is profoundly committed to diversity, and he has pushed that agenda more than I think many other medical school deans around the country, even before the Black Lives Matter movement renaissanced this year. He has pushed, his Dr. Choi believes that, there's the usual education, research, and clinical care three-legged stool of academic medicine, but Dr. Choi has said to us, there's a fourth leg to that stool, and that's diversity and equity. And the hospital leadership has also been very committed to that issue. And actually, one thing that I didn't get a chance to mention was, besides all of our many other aspects of our diversity agenda, just this week was announced a philanthropic gift of about $40 to $50 million to a Center for Health Justice that will be run out of New York Presbyterian Hospital, led by Dr. Iyashari, who has been very involved in graduate medical education and very committed to specifically the residency training and professional development agenda. So we're looking forward to what that center can do to enhance clinical care. But I think every department is undergoing its own self-study, its own, our dean has mandated that every department have a diversity and equity champion. But even deeper than that, every department, I think, is going through its own self-study and self-analysis of in the medical school, every dimension, in terms of how can we address healthcare delivery through a racial justice lens, a health equity lens, to make what has always been, I think, a high quality medical center even better, because there's always more that you can do. And we know that, that academic medicine needs to do more. So that's one of the reasons that we're all here, is that we are eager to welcome more people to our family to do this mission.
Susanna, can I interrupt you, because Eric Brumberger is on the call too from anesthesia, and I don't know that he was here. Maybe he was and we missed him in the beginning, but probably he wants to talk too.
Absolutely, and I'm sorry, Eric, that if we didn't have you on the agenda. I'll invite you to speak.
That's so sweet of Karana and Susanna. Thank you, everybody. It's an honor to be a part of this. I know there's a lot of medical students out there interested in anesthesiology. We're very proud of our list this year. So thank you for joining. We've been a part of this event for many, many years. And am I wrong to say that this is the most successful? It's amazing. And to hear everybody speak and see all of my colleagues out there, it's just such a great way to spend an afternoon. So I look forward to the breakout session, and I don't want to just jump in, but thanks for including me.
Yeah, if there are any other program directors on, we're sorry if we didn't recognize you earlier. If anyone else, I know that different people are going to be coming on at different times because of their other clinical responsibilities, and definitely in the breakouts, you'll get additional time to speak with program directors. But if there's anybody on any other program director on now that wants to add anything.
In the comments, we have a general surgery applicant asking a question, but I believe that the leadership will join at the separate breakout session.
Yes, I think there was, a constraint.
Out of time availability. Of course, in the ideal world, we would have everyone, but with the schedules, it's a little busy, but they will be in the breakout session.
Absolutely. I do think that somebody wrote, "Yay, anesthesia." I think one of the things that I've been hearing a lot from applicants is, what's your advice for a Zoom interview with students? Does that sound like something that you're interested in? Nod your heads. Yes. Okay. So maybe a couple of us can respond to that. Do's and don'ts, perhaps, or advice. Maybe I'll have Jen DePace comment.
Yeah, you know, we're all new to Zoom interviews. So one thing to reassure you is we may be just as nervous as you are. And so I encourage you to let that anxiety go. One of the things that I think is really, really important is that you practice. I would not go into your first Zoom interview without having practiced. And that includes the technology, of course, but also having somebody practice with you to choose where you're sitting, how you're sitting, what's in your background, thinking about some of those things, because you want to put your best foot forward the same way that you would if you were sitting across the desk from me. And it's sometimes easier to get that first impression or connect with somebody in person. But I think what we're finding is that we can definitely do that on Zoom, but it may take a little bit more thought and practice for you to be comfortable, right? We want you to be comfortable across the screen. And I think by practicing a few times to get comfortable, how do you look at that, the camera and the light, right? I'm trying to do it right now, and even having practiced it, it feels a little uncomfortable, but I want that eye contact with you. And so ask one of your mentors, your friends, to do a trial run with you.
Thanks. And what about just interviews in general? Maybe Jimmy can comment on what do you think is important to try to get across in an interview?
Yeah, I think that it's, in speaking to what Jennifer was saying, I think it's equally challenging for us to relay our culture, right? Our program, our hospital to you guys when you're not here and when you're not in person. But it's also equally hard to sort of get a sense of who you are in shorter interviews. So just trying to, in whatever way possible, make it as personal as you can so that we can really get a sense of who we're dealing with and who we're looking at. We all spend a lot of time reviewing applications. We are well versed in what you have done and where you've come from and all of the academics that have come into it. But try to take the time to make it as personal as possible.
Kirsti, do you have thoughts about the interview itself?
I think I echo what everyone said. I can't stress practice. Just like we're asking you to practice, we're also practicing too, trying to figure out. Know your application. Even this is going to be a time where everything that's on your application is going to matter. So I can't tell you how it's not looked upon well when you don't know what's in the application, what's in your application, and everything that's in your application is fair game. So if you've done research, know what that research was about. If you've written a paper, know what that paper is about. Just be ready and smile. Really, I know it's very kind of nerve-wracking, and nobody's used to this platform, but just be yourself and just try to bring your best self forward. Just smile and go with the flow. We want to see that you are happy meeting us, and that we want, like I think someone said, we want to see you here. So if you look very uneasy, this is New York City. People are going to be, you're going to need to be on your toes. So we want to see that you can think quickly on your feet, that you have humor, and that we could see you, working with us, and that we could see ourselves working with you. Really, that's it.
And Susanna, if I may.
Yes, Joy.
I just put in the chat a link to a resource from the AAMC. Many of you probably have already seen it, but it's a list of tips for applicants. That page also has a link to a list of tips for programs and faculty participating in interviews. And in addition to what's already been shared, just be mindful of the space, the environment, and the technology. You know, the cat might need to be put in another room. Perhaps that the time of your interview is not a good time for other family members to be on the internet. Joy Howell had to upgrade her internet at home because it wasn't strong enough when we transitioned into this Zoom world. So just be mindful of those technical issues or environmental issues that can potentially serve as a huge distractor. And as faculty, as people, we have a responsibility to try to minimize the degree to which we are distracted, or to which, you know, a stain on the ceiling doesn't distract us from what the applicant is saying. We have to be mindful of the potential for bias, but as much as you can do to eliminate any distractors, you'll be well served.
Thank you. And perhaps maybe Dr. Goody, you can share, because I know at least in internal medicine, our third-year residents are currently going through the fellowship application process, which mirrors what you guys are going through now. You know, they are doing the Zoom interviews, and it's obviously in a much shorter time frame, but they've already experienced the pros and cons of Zoom interviews and may have tips. I don't know if they've echoed to you, Dr. Goody, what they've encountered. I know some of the residents actually do the interviews in-house. We have some spaces for them, but maybe you can share some input into that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the good things that we sort of thought about before fellowship interviews started, is that you may want to have a space that is in the hospital or the medical center where you are, and they may have spaces for that. So reach out to people in your infrastructure to see if they have a place where you can sit that's quiet. I think that, to be fair, we are all new at doing this. And as Dr. Golightly said, you know, it's Saturday, so I decided that I would take this call from home, and my kids really just don't want to not be with me right now. And so we all have a little bit of interruptions that are happening, but obviously, you know, during the interview, it's going to be a short period of time. And so you do want to be able to have the time to answer people's questions and get your questions through. I think some of the things that we are hearing from the applicants are, make sure that you have another way, an alternative way of reaching the faculty member should something happen. And probably the programs will tell you something about that, how they'll reach you if the internet doesn't work, or how they'll interview you if that doesn't happen. That you really want to be mindful of time, which we all sort of lose track of on Zoom. It's very funny. I never realized I talk too much, or no, I knew that I talk too much, but I talk a lot. And on Zoom, you can just keep talking and talking and talking. You feel like so you want to really be mindful of the time as you're answering people's questions, get to the answer to the question and move on. And I am going to be mindful of people's time right now and say that as we pass off to the other questions that some of the students have. But I do think that the other thing is to remember to keep your camera on for the parts that you have to. There will be parts, certainly in planning our interview day, where we're going to tell people your camera can be off, and that's okay. We're not watching you. This is for you to see. But keep your camera on when you're supposed to be. And obviously, if there are things that are, you know, coming up and you need to turn your camera off, that's, I guess, part of the reason we want you to be somewhere that's your own private space. And the plug, that's the other thing. Always have your plug, be near an outlet and have your plug available. That's the other thing. You'd be surprised how much Zoom eats your battery.
Linny, you have a comment?
Yeah, as I keep going in and out because of the lights keep flashing, and we're talking about the importance of all these things being just perfect. It's interesting. I ran into someone last night who I had interviewed for one of our programs, and I had to tell her that I was so glad that she was here. She was filling me in on what she was doing. And I said, you know, that was one of the best interviews ever. And it started off on it was a good note, but she hadn't answered something completely. And at the very end, she said, you know, I've been thinking about that. What would you do? And we ended up having this exchange. And so things may not be perfect. Don't let that throw you off. You know, I mean, we're all getting used to this, yes. But as was just said, yes, my daughter came in, she's saying, but you know what? I had written her in the chat privately. Oh, that's so wonderful. Because that's how it hit me. It's like mama in action. I wrote that, you know, I mean, that she's juggling all these balls and she's here on a Saturday. It, to me, just shows a dedication and a meaning. And so you might have to say, you know, I've done the best I can. This is where I am. To me, that shows you really care. And so stay genuine, stay with what you are. You know, you put the cat away and the kid opened the door and there comes the cat. Go with it. And I think that I can't speak for those other places, but I think here you'll be accepted for the total person you are. Just keep going with who you are. And I hope you will forgive me for my blinky lights and coming off and on.
One of the things that I think students are interested in, I know we only have 5 minutes left, but is what if there's something on my record that didn't go that well? How do I address that? And should I address that in an interview? Because I think that one of the things that's really important for all of you to remember is that we really do take, and I think it's really important that programs take a holistic approach. And there, you know, life happens, things happen, learning happens in different ways, and sometimes there may be a blip on your record that you're not quite sure how to address. So Matt, do you want to reflect on that?
Yeah, sure. I think, I mean, to be frankly honest, there is no hiding anything on your application. And I think it's important that you know that, but it's important that you're prepared with how to frame that in a message and a narrative of overcoming adversity, which all of us have had to do in some degree or another. And I think that's something that requires practice and discussing with your mentors in medical school or your deans or your co-students or people in your family. I think that is something that you could be asked about, and being prepared to how to address it sort of straight away is only to benefit you.
I agree. Manish, do you have anything you would want to add about that?
Yeah, I think that's such an important question, Susanna. I mean, so just like Matt said, you're not going to be able to hide it, but what I think really has to happen is you want to be the one providing the narrative for everybody else. If you don't talk about it on the interview, then you're just opening up an avenue for other people to create a narrative about you. And generally their narrative may not be as carefully crafted as you might put into it. So I usually tell my applicants, look, you should feel it's okay. You got the interview, you're here. We think that you are absolutely great enough to be a part of our program. We wouldn't have you here if you weren't, you know, if we didn't think you fit our screening criteria. So that said, I say, take what you have, whatever this issue might be. I say, own it, be accountable for it. Talk about how it changed and developed you as a person, and talk about how you're going to be a more tested person with resilience. And I think that that comes off very, very well to a program director, because we know life happens. You know, just like the cat jumps in, it's fine. You know, it's part of what's there. I mean, I love it when kids jump into the screen. You know, I mean, it's like that's part of the family part of it. So, you know, I think that you owning what's there and then talking about how it made you better is probably the best strategy.
All right, maybe why don't we have Aya and Lindsay have the last word? We have a couple more minutes, just talking about, just for another minute, about why you chose Cornell. Maybe Aya, can you go first?
Sure. I think, you know, obviously the match is like it's like you choose them, they choose you, it kind of happens. So I think I went into it knowing that, you know, whatever does happen, it will be okay, which I know is like, whenever someone would tell me that, I would be like rolling my eyes and saying, you have no idea what I'm going through. But, you know, you do your best to try to find a place that fits and feels like it would be the best for you personally and professionally. I think for me, I found that in Cornell, it just felt really genuine. I think you go through the match process and you meet all these different places, and you kind of start to see sometimes a lot of the same, right? I mean, there's certain ACGME rules as to what a program has to offer, but it's in the people and that environment that create that you can either observe on match day how the residents interact with each other, but also after match day, like what efforts do they put to reach out to you, or how available are they for questions, or the way that they engage with you. And I think for me, it just felt, for some reason, maybe they call it that gut feeling, which again, I did roll my eyes at that when, and when anyone would tell me. But it just felt like, you know, this is the place where I could see myself being the best, you know, physician that I could be. And I knew that these 3 years would be so critical into me, you know, becoming the person that I am. You know, as a medical student, obviously you're learning to be a doctor, but it's really in residency when it's those real life scenarios and experiences, and they're hard, and you lean on your residents. And I just, you know, I just felt like this is where I would grow the most. And certainly when it came to diversity, having identifying as a URM in medicine, it just felt like, you know, all the faculty and the residents, they really wanted to welcome you as a family. And, you know, thinking of like, oh, you're my younger sibling, you're my child, and I want to devote myself to you. And obviously Dr. Morales is like a mom. And you know, it's just like that feeling that like they're gonna look out for you, and they are committed to just fostering your growth. And it's weird to put into words. I feel like I'm getting kind of emotional, but it's true. You know, you just feel that. So I guess that's it. And obviously I'm a New Yorker, and obviously I was born at Cornell, and I was like, if I'm gonna pick somewhere in New York, which I think I did because I felt like I wanted to give back to the community of New York, you know, I wanted to be a PCP for my fellow New Yorkers. I kind of narrowed that down, and I felt like this place had a home feel to it. So long answer, but hopefully, you see, this is how interviews are gonna go. You're gonna get emotional and it's gonna feel kind of weird, but hopefully the people listening will be like, oh, that seems kind of honest. So trying to be honest and genuine. Sorry, Lindsay, I will have you give a more, you know, put together answer.
That's great. So for me,
Part one now, Lindsay, but we got to go to the breakouts. So maybe give a one-liner and then you can pick it up in the medicine breakout.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So for me, not only the amazing opportunities that are here at Cornell, but again, like Aya said, on my interview day, I was actually interviewed by Dr. Morales, and you know, just meeting her and hearing Dr. Goody's speech on our interview day, it was just really that personal connection. Every resident that I talked to just seemed so genuinely happy. And whenever you'll go to various interviews, I feel like the most common reason that people say that they chose that residency program is for the people. And it does get redundant, but then when you really start doing it, then you see, oh, these are my people. These are the people that I, you know, want to work long hours with and decompress with after work, and just really form that sense of community with. And so I hope that you guys were able to see that community bond that we have here from hearing our program director speak today. And I hope that when we break into the breakout sessions and you talk to more of the residents and faculty in the particular specialties, that you kind of will continue to see that.